rear brakes. So, got these vintage rusted up calipers off. As you can see, they use brass fittings. That one did not like any sockets or wrenches that I had. So came out with a little piece of pipe, so we'll have to make a new pipe. We can reuse at least this one fitting. We're getting new brake hoses. So this one should match here. And then I got the parking brake actuator assembly moving, which is impressive. So we'll lube that up a little more. Now I want to retract this piston using just a Harbor Freight brake pad, brake piston caliper retraction kit, and it is working. So I'm going clockwise here. You can see the brake fluid is pouring out into my pan. So I'll get these retracted all the way, get everything cleaned up, put on fresh rotors and pads, and then the parking brake cable situation, yeah, they're all rusty. So the owner did bring me new parking brake cables. They're not the easiest to install. They basically go through all these brackets and stuff, so everything's rusted up. But we'll do the best that we can with the parts that we have. Alright, we're fabricating some brake lines here. So here's the new hose, and then I'm just using Nycop with M10 by 1.0 bubble flare fittings. And we'll just, for a bubble flare, it's actually very easy with the flaring kit. You just do one step and you're done. That's it. So that's what a bubble flare looks like. It's not pressed in like a double flare. So there's the original. There's the fabricated. Can't tell the difference. Sweet. So let's install this and do the other side, bleed the brakes, and then move on to the front. Alright, so I was having some trouble retracting the right rear caliper, and well, you know, screwing it in, and it had that much more to go, and it just wouldn't go. So I shot it out with some compressed air, and all this came out. So I'm not exactly sure if someone's been in here before. So this is the adjuster screw, and all this stuff comes out. There's a circlip, and what I found was there's another circlip just hanging out in here. I don't think that's correct. Why? Where's that from? Now, I was looking at service info. It doesn't tell you how to take this part of the caliper apart. I mean, I guess we could tear the other one apart, but I don't want to because it works fine. So, you know, this screw and this spring screw in here, and then you get some spring tension. And it starts depressing that, and then it just kind of comes out on its own. I don't know if that's appropriate or not. Now it bottoms out on this piece here, but when I was screwing in the caliper, I think what was happening, instead of the screw going in, it was just spinning on whatever's in the bottom there. Those metal rings held in by a circlip, kind of weird. It must be a spring. if I can get that circlip out, we can tear it apart a little further and see if there's anything that's supposed to prevent that from spinning, because I don't think this piece is supposed to spin inside the caliper, and it does spin once the spring tension is relieved from those metal whatever spring washers. Really funky design, but that's pretty much the theme of this car. Well, I extracted this piece out of the piston. Wow, there's like little bearings in there. Wow, that's intricate. So maybe the problem is there's just a whole bunch of this goop that's on the bottom of the piston that wasn't letting it retract all the way. Let me clean all this mess up. We'll put it back together. And that's supposed to spin, I guess. Or the piston's supposed to spin, but this piece, you can see, has flats on it. And that's held in place by this washer. And that's held in place by that little pin right there. So that screw is supposed to be all the way down. And so the piston's this way. That screw, this washer, is supposed to prevent the screw from spinning, I'm guessing. I gotta figure this out. Alright, so I got the left caliper apart, the one that was good, because I want to see how it's put together. And, well, this looks similar, but on this one, I can't turn the inner screw in the piston, or not, at least not very easily. Okay, that's one difference. Second difference is the spring is actually mounted inside of here. It'd be hard to see, but that spring holder is secured by the circlip to the body of the caliper. That's not how I put the other one back together, because it was all in pieces when it came apart. So, well, I don't want to take this one apart all the way, but we can see that there's a big difference. So I don't know what to do about this. Maybe pop this circlip out and see how many rings there are in here. This is a known good caliper. So that spring is supposed to, let's see, what is it supposed to do? It's right there, and it's pushing, it's basically retracting this rod. So if I activate it with the pry bar, I'm sure the rod will extend and then retract on its own. On the other side, there's nothing pulling the rod back. That's a problem. So here's the piston from the good caliper, and it makes a lot more sense now. So you can see right here, this little plunger, it has the roller balls, a flat plate, the wavy washer, and then another flat plate, and then the circlip. So how does this thing work? Well, there's a one-way seal right here, so there's brake fluid on this side, and on this side there's actually a small air passage going to the outside. So the bottom of this is just atmosphere. This is brake fluid, so the seal is that way. Now, when you press the brake pedal, this thing goes all the way, you know, towards the bottom of the piston. That makes sense. And then the threaded screw, that's retracted, so this whole thing gets forced apart, and the circlip right here holds, kind of pushes down on these washers, and this thing actually spins as it's moving out. It spins and unscrews from the screw. So that takes up the slack in that parking brake mechanism. So next time when you apply the parking brake, there's very little slack, and the screw pushes down, and expands the pads. So that makes perfect sense. So this thing is supposed to turn only when it's extending. When you're retracting the pads, you're turning the entire piston with this assembly, and it screws back onto that forcing screw. That's how it's supposed to work. So I'm going to put this caliper back together, make sure it works, then we're going to tear the other side apart again and put it together like this. So take pictures, make sure all the, note the order of all the washers here, and then also the caliper side, there's the forcing screw, and the hold down spring is supposed to be secured by that circlip in the caliper. That was not obvious when the whole thing came apart. So I'm going to do that. Hopefully the right side will work just as good as the left side. So this is the hardest part of the procedure of reassembling the caliper. I'm sure there are special tools available, but this 14mm long socket that goes over that screw, and then you compress that with a clamp, and then you have to use long screwdrivers to get that circlip to seat. Now I'm not 100% sure that it's seated all the way, but I think it's pretty close. So I'm going to leave it at that and put everything back together. This thing needs to be disassembled and gone through because it's all loose. Probably the washers aren't in the right place. We'll get there. So now these flat washers from the piston, they're not really flat, so I'm going to flatten them out a bit. Oh man, no parts required, but so much labor. It's insanity. I guess not a bad way to make a living restoring vintage European cars, huh? I probably couldn't handle more than like one car per year. Yeah, looks pretty good. Alright, the caliper is reassembled. Let's bench test it. So every time you push this all the way down, the parking brake mechanism, the piston's supposed to extend a little bit and not retract. And it is doing that, maybe not as well as the other caliper. Oh, I'm hoping this is going to work. Let me fully retract it again. Alright, rear calipers are on, bled. Let's do a final check. So left side, let's see the free play before the pads, get really tight. So about halfway on that pivot, limit of the pivot. Now, let's reset that one. Try the newly reassembled right side one. Again, brakes are pumped up. Perfect. Exactly the same, about halfway. So, calipers are done. We just need new parking brake cables in the back, and the rear brakes will be complete. Oh, here we go with the parking brake cables. So, I got them loose at the wheels. It's super tight up here above the exhaust, above the drive shaft. You can see where they attach right there on the equalizer. So the right side one, you have to pull it through these rusty brackets, and this one on the differential. So I just sprayed some WD-40 in here. We'll have to work them out, and they only come out this way because this is the fat end. So I'm gonna do my best here. Alright, got the right side snake out, and it looks like the new cable is identical, which is fantastic news because parts for this car are not guaranteed to fit. We've been finding that out every step of the way. So let me get the other cable out, make sure that one's correct, and we'll try to install the new ones best we can. Oh, that's the last little... Oh, come on. Would a lift be helpful here? I don't know. Actually, this will help clean that pass-through hole. Oh my gosh. The little towel is just stuck. Hard work working on these European cars. Alright, the left side cable is also identical, has this little rubber block. Looks pretty nice. Let's pop it in. Alright, next step, front brakes. Time to install these beauties. Dormant brake hose. Well, the owner supplied that, made in China. Hopefully the Audi will not complain about that. Original ATE brake pads. And here's what we're dealing with. So at least the caliper moves really nicely. So I'm going to clean up the brake pad surfaces there. Slap the whole thing together and change out this vintage brake hose, which has seen better days. This is actually completely plugged up. You can press the brake pedal as hard as you want. This caliper will not extend or retract. So we'll undo that, and I'm getting pretty excited. And we gotta fix this coolant leak, and it's just dripping, dripping, dripping. So luckily these two fittings on the brake hoses didn't put up too much of a fight. Cracked loose. They are brass, so they're very soft. So I have to break them with a crow's foot. Get better grip on there than just a two-sided wrench. And this fitting up here seems to be unscrewing just fine. That's good news. This is going to look so cool. So let's retract the caliper the easy way here. Oh, very nice. It's all the way in. Yep. Awesome. Put on the new hose. Bleed it out. So far this is going smoother than the rear brakes. Alright, so everything's cleaned up, ready for reassembly. Step one is to take the special brake pad, and it has adhesive things on it. So I'm guessing just peel those off. Special ATE, made just for this car. Amazing. It has a wear sensor on it for 1991. That was pretty hot stuff. And then slide it in here. Oh, that was high quality. What the heck? That's so dumb. That's not gonna hold. What? Here's the original Audi brake pad, and that thing is still holding just fine. The little spring. That's ridiculous. Well, next step is to put our fancy schmancy brake rotor on this way. Calipers all the way out. Oh, come on. Almost there. Wow, that's a tight fit. Okay. That's on there. Look at this thing. Simply ridiculous. And then we slide in this thing, put a little lube on the ears here. That should slide in right here, and it does. Wow, look at that. Now I have to remember, probably review the video footage of what clips there are to hold everything together. Man, this is insanity. Alright, so this screw goes in there. Holds the rotor on, and this clip goes in here and basically keeps this pad in. And I guess when the whole thing is set up, then that inner pad, it would be nice to have that spring clip in there, but how the heck do you reattach this to the brake pad? Disappointing. Alright, I'm going to push the brake pedal. Make sure we can build pressure. Sweet. Oh man, it's so nice. Look at this thing. This side's done. Let's rinse and repeat on the other side, and I just want to test drive it, but we have to fix the coolant leak. So the right front went very smoothly. New brake hose, new UFO brake rotor, new brake pads, even the little clip didn't come off of this one. Simply beautiful. Heater hoses, got them off. They're pretty nasty. But wouldn't you know it, little rodent damage on this one. So I cut this one off. It was stuck to the metal pipe, but it wasn't the hose that was leaking. There's actually a pinhole rusted through the pipe right where the hose attaches. Let's see if I can get a nice camera shot of this. Right there. See, there's the pipe. There's our pinhole. So basically the hose wasn't quite covering that pinhole and yeah, you got a leak. So what's the solution? Well, since we have the hoses off, we'll replace them with some I think some silicone 5/8 inch, but we'll have to slide the hose on farther past that pinhole and clamp it, maybe double clamp it. See how far the pipe was in right here? You can see kind of the little bulge. And the pinhole is right here where the mice chewed the hose. So we've got to slide the hose on well past that. Silicone hose is usually pretty nice about being flexible and friendly, but yeah, that's our problem. So I'm going to get some new hoses, pop them in, we'll fill it with coolant, and see how it runs. So, fail with aftermarket heater hoses. This thing needs 2 OEM heater hoses, and we'll slide one on further to seal up that pinhole. For now, I just took the good hose, looped it around so we're not connected to the heater core right here. So here's the loop hose. Yeah, it's a little, you know, pinched, but filled it with coolant. Let's start up and maybe take it for a little spin up and down the lane. Why is the brake light on? Oh, I should probably reconnect the sensor. So that's power steering fluid, but it's also for the brake boosters, like Hydro Boost. Pretty neat. Pull on that. Pretty cool on the coolant. Alright, no more brake light. So the brake just sank down to the bottom there. Still feels kind of spongy. Maybe we'll have to do a little more bleeding. Maybe. It is an ABS system. See, brake. Oh, I didn't put the brake light fuse in, but let's take it up and down the lane. She's rolling. Brakes take a couple of pumps to activate. Pretty sweet. I noticed behind me a big blue cloud of smoke. Let's see if I gun it. I don't know, maybe it's just blowing out the cobwebs. Well, but it went 1.5 miles. Temperature gauge did not move from the C mark. Fan did not kick on, but I can hear it's hot. I think it's boiling. So, is the radiator hot? Yes. Yes, the radiator is hot. So I think it's cycling the coolant, but if, you know, for whatever reason the fan didn't kick on and the gauge doesn't work, that's not good. But it drives, so definitely some bugs to work out. The brakes, I'll bleed them one more time. Hopefully it's not a master cylinder problem, but who knows, or ABS problem. We just gotta keep chipping away at it, but it's getting there. At least it can move and it can stop now.